Hello everyone, welcome to the Mughals to Mahatma series of Convert IAS. The theme of this discussion is Marathas. So coming back to the context, we have discussed about the decline of Mughals in the past videos. I've told you that 1707 is the year that marks a break. 1707 is the year in which Aurangzeb dies. Then you have a series of weak Mughals. And when the central polity weakens, what will happen? Regional powers will rise. Until 1857, which is the reign or the end of the Mughal Empire with Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar, you have this trend. Then the British will come up during this time. So there are three kinds of polities, regional powers that will emerge during this time. The first one is successor state. For example, states like Awadh, Bengal, and Hyderabad. We have a separate video on this. You can watch out that. Second is independent states. For example, states like Mysore, Rajput. So these people accepted the sovereignty of the Mughals. These people didn't accept the sovereignty of the Mughals. They considered themselves independent, but they were not rebelling with the Mughal state as well. So we have done a video on that as well. Then comes to the rebel states. There are three main rebel areas. The first one, Jats. Second, Sikhs. And third, Marathas. About Jats and Sikhs, we have done a video. About Marathas, we'll discuss in this one. Now see, the rebel states have a general nature. They will be rebelling against the Mughal state, first of all. And they will be constantly trying to weaken the Mughal state. You can see that in the case of Sikhs, you can see that in the case of Jats, and you can see that in the case of Marathas. The Maratha case is different. Unlike the Sikhs and Jats, the Marathas had a very large empire. In fact, they dreamed of replacing the Mughals as a pan-Indian empire after their decline started in 1707. You see this map. Take the case of Punjab, this was the Sikh-dominated area, or successor states like Awadh, Bengal, or Hyderabad, and look at the extent of Marathas. They had this entire region under their control. So how they reached this position, starting from this Deccan region to this position, is the story of Marathas that we are going to discuss in this video. Let's start with the story in 1630s. 1630s is an important time period because in that period, in Deccan, the region that you see here, during the time of Lodhis, the time of Lodhis is when Babur comes to India, that is 1526. During the time of Lodhis itself, there has been disintegration and formation of new empires, and one important empire that came into that region was Bahmani Sultanate. This Bahmani Sultanate, it disintegrated, and from its disintegration 5 sultanates came into being. 5. These 5 sultanates were called as Deccani Sultanates. So this Deccani Sultanates, they are 5 in nature. 3 of them, Bijapur, Ahmednagar and Golconda, survived. There were 2 others as well, Berar and Bidar. These 3 were the most powerful kingdoms in 1630s. Golconda is in the modern day Andhra Pradesh region. You can go to Hyderabad and you can see Golconda fort there. Then Ahmednagar towards the southern Gujarat region, Bijapur further south. These were the regions. And there was one general who served in these armies. His name was Shahaji Bhosle. Why is Shahaji Bhosle important? Because he is the father of Chhatrapati Shivaji. So take the case of any major ruler who came upon his own. For example, Hyder Ali. You can see a similar history. There were generals in someone else's army. Then once that polity becomes weak, they assert their power. Shahaji Bhosle was one such person. Once his son came, Shivaji came, he started a series of rebellions. And his time period was from 1630 to 1680. Shivaji died in 1680. He was not killed by anyone, it was a natural death. So always keep that in mind. But there are other Maratha chiefs who were killed by Aurangzeb. But Shivaji was not killed by Aurangzeb. Shivaji has in fact suffered a defeat from Aurangzeb. So ever since Aurangzeb existed, that is till 1707, the Marathas couldn't defeat the Mughals. Aurangzeb in fact sent one of his general, and that general has defeated Shivaji. So Mughals were that strong on the land, and the Marathas didn't have a strong, prominent navy as well at that time. So Mughal power couldn't be challenged during the time of Aurangzeb, but after Aurangzeb, things started to change. And Shivaji, so see Shivaji's time period. It is from 1630 to 1680. That means it is not during the proper reign of Aurangzeb. It is during the time of Shah Jahan, in fact. Aurangzeb's time peaks after 1680, and that time Shivaji already dies. And I've told you he has led a series of rebellions. So first he has to consolidate his power in the Deccan region. So what he did, he rebelled against the Bijapur state. Second, he rebelled against the Mughal Empire, because the Mughal Empire, these states were giving levies to the Mughal Empire. They were the central sultans. Then Shivaji also rebelled against the East India Company, because East India Company was mostly concentrated in the south during that time. They came to the north along with the decline of the Mughals. So Shivaji rebelled against these three power structures. And Shivaji died in 6080. Now, Shivaji's expeditions had three important natures. You have to understand that very clearly. So you can make sense of it once you understand it. You can make sense of the levies that Shivaji had. You can make sense of the expansion that they had once you realize the nature of his expansion. So Shivaji was supported by highly mobile peasant pastoralists. They were agriculturalists and they were highly mobile. How do they get the mobility? They get the mobility because they use horses well. So these people were mostly plunderers. So what they will do is, they'll go to a region, they'll completely plunder that, they'll raid that. The term can be raiding. They'll raid that, they'll get the wealth, and they'll ascertain their supremacy. That's how Marathas worked during the time of Shivaji. And there were powerful warrior families. Now this is something you will see even after the disintegration of Marathas, because you can see confederacies forming. For example, the Hosles, the Hoysalas, the Gaekwads, the Scindias. These are powerful families. So Shivaji was also supported by these powerful families. And with the help of these powerful families and a group of peasant pastoralists, he started conquering. It is in 1645 that he made his first conquer of a fort. He conquered his first fort in 1645. Remember this year? It is in 1674 only that he is getting the title Chhatrapati. So for almost 20 years, after his first conquest, he remained as the nominal head. He remained as the all-powerful person, but not the Chhatrapati. It is in 1674 he crowned himself as the Chhatrapati. Chhatra means umbrella. Chhatrapati means keeper of umbrellas. Why? Because there were a lot of families involved. So he has to be the sovereign of all that families together. That's why this title. And his state was based on the principle of Hindavi Swarajya. An important concept to remember. Hindavi Swarajya means self-rule of the Hindu people. Now think about Bal Gangadhar Tilak during modern India, or think about any nationalist who invoked Shivaji during the freedom struggle. They invoked Shivaji because Shivaji had such an idea, Hindavi Swarajya. So for nationalism, you need tools like this. Even Gandhi used the Khilafat. You need to unite the masses based on religion, so use symbols like this. So Hindavi Swarajya is something that is related to Chhatrapati Shivaji, which was invoked in the later times by nationalist rulers as well. So 1674 is the year in which Chhatrapati Shivaji established his supremacy. He got the title Chhatrapati, and he established his kingdom with Raigad as its capital. So Raigad fort becomes the center of Maratha power. Then in 1680, Shivaji dies. Now what happens after Shivaji dies? His son, Sambhaji, takes the throne. He takes the throne in 1681. And what he does? He continues the expansion. So I've told you 1680 to 1707 is the time when Aurangzeb peaks in power. So initially during the reign of Aurangzeb has to deal with the internal battle. So every Mughal king, there is no clear rule of succession for the Mughals. Even though we say it is hierarchical, there is no clear rule of succession. So if the king has 5 sons, 5 of them will fight it against each other. So Aurangzeb killed Dara Shikoh. So these people will keep fighting against each other. They have to suppress the internal rebellions. They have to suppress the nobles. So Aurangzeb did that in his initial phase. Then he started focusing on consolidation. During that time, what is Sambhaji doing? He is continuing the Maratha expansion. So he is fighting with the Portuguese in the Mysore region, that is in the modern day Karnataka region. He is fighting with Chikkadevaraya, the extension of the Vijayanagara Empire. So Aurangzeb comes to know this. So he sends an army to the Deccan. So we talk about the Deccan expeditions of Aurangzeb. This is the context. For 8 years, he fights a war with Sambhaji. And Sambhaji is finally executed in 1689. So he is the Maratha king who is executed by Aurangzeb, not Shivaji. Now what happens? Sambhaji is executed. So Sambhaji has a son. His name is Sahu. He is the one, Shahu. So Shahu gets captured and he is kept in the fort of the Mughals. So before getting into the throne, Shahu is a prisoner. And since Shahu is a prisoner, in the Maratha, in the Raigad, a person named Raja Ram, he will ascend to the throne. He is the half brother of Sambhaji. So Sambhaji's son, he is imprisoned, but Sambhaji's half brother, he is the emperor now. Now something interesting will happen. In 1707, Aurangzeb will die. Once Aurangzeb dies, Bahadur Shah becomes the ruler. Bahadur Shah's policies towards Marathas is more liberal. Bahadur Shah has a tough policy with the Sikhs and Jats, but with Marathas he follows a liberal policy. So what he does, he releases Shahu. So Rajaram is already the ruler, Shahu is released. This leads to a civil war. A civil war within the Maratha kingdom. On one side you have Shahu, on the other side you have Shivaji too. So by this time Rajaram dies, Shivaji too is his son, and his Rajaram's wife Tarabai, an important name. So Tarabai controls the empire with her son Shivaji too. And this battle happens. So Shahu does something to overcome this. In 1713, when he was released, Shahu appoints a person named Balaji Vishwanath as his Peshwa. Peshwa means chief minister. So once Balaji Vishwanath was appointed as the Peshwa of the Maratha kingdom, a new era starts in Maratha Confederacy. It is called the Peshwa era. So as the chief minister, the emperor, who is Shahu, becomes a nominal king. The real executive becomes the chief minister. And what he does, he consolidates everyone. He takes everyone together. And from 1720 to 1761, you can see that a consolidation is happening. And Peshwas have Pune as their capital. So it was Raigad for the Marathas, for the Peshwas it was Pune. And from 1720 to 61, he is consolidating everyone. So the civil war comes to an end. And this is the phase. Remember the map I showed you? This is the phase in which the Maratha expansion is happening on a large scale. This is also the phase in which the Mughals are declining on a large scale. Their power is shrinking and getting confined to the Red Fort. Now you see this expansionary phase. In 1720, the Marathas conquered Malwa and Gujarat, the western side. When it reached 1737, they raided Delhi. So see the term raid. So this is how they operate. In 1758, so here something important happens. 1739, Nadir Shah comes. He also raids Delhi. So double blow to the Delhi Mughals. 1758, so plunders are happening all through this while. In 1758, their extent reaches up to Peshawar. Peshawar is in modern day Pakistan. So see the range. And in south, it is reached till Tanjore. So Tanjore, remember the state? Tanjore is the place that had Cholas as their power center. Now if you go to Tanjore, you can visit the Brihadeshwara temple and you can see the Maratha remains. So you'll wonder how Marathas came to Tanjore. In fact, you have the Maratha Peshwa and the Maratha king's statue there in Tanjore even now. It is because the Marathas had their empire extended from Peshawar to south in Tanjore. But something will happen now. This is the year 1758. The Marathas expands like anything. They have the ambition of conquering the entire Indian subcontinent. But something happens, which is the Third Battle of Panipat. In 1761, so from 1748 to 1761, Ahmad Shah Abdali, who is the successor of Nadir Shah, he invades the Indian subcontinent. He in fact appoints a general to look after the subcontinent affairs. This general gets defeated by the Marathas because they are also a strong power here. So Ahmad Shah Abdali comes back. He takes revenge. In 1761, he completely destroys the bulk of Maratha army. So this puts a curtain on the Maratha ambitions. Now, before going further, you need to know now something else. So this time period, 1720 to 1761, during this time period, Marathas were the controllers of the entire central Indian region. So they had the right to two important taxes. These are UPSC previous year questions as well. One is Chauth, second is Sardeshmukhi. So Chauth is 25% gross revenue or produce. 25% is 1/4. So it can be asked as 1/4 of the produce. What is the produce? Agricultural produce. So I've told you, remember who was Shivaji's army men? They were mobile peasant pastoralists. So it was pastoralists who formed the base of the Marathas. So they had to pay 25%, and every territory that needed protection had to pay this money. So Chauth can be called as protection money. If Chauth is not paid, the Marathas will raid them. They'll plunder everything. So 25% of Chauth should be paid. Now Sardeshmukhi is 10% additional tax on the Chauth. This is to ensure peace and order. So Chauth and Sardeshmukhi always associated with Marathas, and the percentage is 25 and 10. 25 means 1/4, which is paid as protection money by hostile or alien states. Now let's come back. Third Battle of Panipat, it defeats the Marathas. Now what will happen? A new person, he'll come to power. His name is Madhav Rao. He is the Peshwa. What he does is to reconsolidate the empire. So what is the strategy to reconsolidate the empire? He will give the autonomy to chieftains. So the Peshwa power is there. Their capital is Pune. From there he gives autonomy because he cannot control everything now because their army is lost, their wealth is lost. So autonomy is given to the chieftains. And this leads to the formation of Maratha Confederacy, something that you'll come across in modern India, something that UPSC has asked in prelims as well. In 1772, Madhav Rao dies. So the power center in Pune declines, and this confederacies will become powerful. And Peshwa becomes a titular head, just like how Shahu or the Maratha king became a nominal head. Peshwa is going to become a nominal head after Madhav Rao. And thereafter you have 5 Maratha confederacies coming up. You can see them here. See the map. The confederacies are Bhonsle, Scindia, Holkar, the Peshwas themselves, and the Gaikwad. The UPSC previous year question was to match them with their region. So Gaikwad is in Baroda, which is Gujarat region. Holkar is in Indore, the proper central Indian region. Scindias are in Gwalior. Bhonsle is in Nagpur. And you have the Peshwas in Pune. So it was always their capital. This is how the Maratha Empire comes to by the end of Madhav Rao's reign in 1772. 1772 is also the year in which the Regulating Acts comes into picture. By the Regulating Act in Bengal, you have the Governor General of Bengal. The British is coming into power. Now the British will be directly in conflict with these confederacies. Then what will happen? The Anglo-Maratha Wars. Now, Anglo-Maratha Wars is a different topic that we will discuss separately. In Anglo-Maratha Wars, every house will start to fight. It extends for a long period of time. You can see this starting from this year 1770s. Then it goes till 1800s. We'll discuss as a separate topic when we talk about the British. So that's it. I hope the story of Marathas is clear for you. The rulers, their time periods, the history, how they came into conflict with the Mughals, the nature of the Marathas, taxes like Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, All these things will be clear to you by the end of this video. Thank you for listening. We'll come up with yet another video in another day. Thank you. Yeah.